I'm glad we're not while we live in like modern times and we're not in like a couple hundred years ago. Is you don't have to think about like all the people that you got to fight. You think about that when like people who had like rivalries back in those days.
Oh, like the gangs. Well, even like I'm thinking.
I mean,
like,
just like between families and shit, but like this town and the next town.
yeah,
Where it's like these two towns have been fighting for the last 300 years.
that was even big in the '60s.
But I mean, like back then, but I think the reason why it was such a big thing, like pre-modern times, was that people just didn't see, you didn't know a lot of guys. So it's like in your head, because like think about us, we live in a big city, so like we're used to being around thousands of people, and just we have acquaintances with a few hundred people probably in the city. But back then, you lived in a small town, you didn't know anybody.
Yeah, you're like, who's this guy coming in here banging all our women?
Yeah. Well,
Get off my turf.
your village, and then like anybody that's not in your village, it's on site.
I'll be honest, I never thought about that. Like, I know there's like the people with horses going into town,
Yeah.
or maybe like the Wild West. They'll be like, that guy you shot, that's James Earl Jones' son.
But just inheriting beef, because it's like, think about all the like enemies you've had in your life. It's just like some guy you knew at school or from work, but you didn't inherit enemies from your grandfather.
Yeah.
Think about that. Or think about how many people where it's like, I don't know, something that my father's father's father did, and now I got to fight a guy with an axe.
I never even really I'll be honest with you, I never even knew it went down like that.
Hell yeah. I mean,
Like,
that's
what are
how,
we talking?
like rivalries have been going. I mean, every culture has always had like, small rivalries. It's one thing, it's not just like big wars, but just like, I think violence was just kind of a casual thing a few hundred years ago. If you're living in, China, you're living in Africa, Latin America or something, and it's just like those people back then, they lived in small villages. And so you only knew a few people, but then like there would be wars. Because nowadays it's like history moves so fast
Yeah.
that it's like, you start a beef with somebody and it's over pretty quick, maybe a year or so. And
Yeah.
at some point somebody goes to jail or somebody dies. Back then it's just like, no, we keep this going.
Huh.
Israel Palestine has been going on for thousands of years.
Wow.
Where it's like, no, we're not letting this go.
Yeah, no, dude, I never really thought about. I mean, I'd seen the stuff about like cowboys back in the day,
Yeah.
how they were always fighting with the Indians. And,
Yeah. Well, just think about that. That's like it's not like, oh, we're fighting over this specific thing. That's just like, no, I'm a cowboy, you're an Indian. We're doing this right now.
Like, so you're saying like in England there was different towns. The town over would fight with.
Well, it was just like there was that, and it was just like the rivalries would go deep. It
Yeah.
wouldn't just be a rivalry like, oh, you fucked my girlfriend. It's a rivalry. It's like, no, your grandfather fucked my grandmother's. It's like, no, we got to do this.
Yeah.
And not only that, but it's like back then. These days, it's like maybe you're violent, but then your kids are like, no, actually, I'm deciding to be nonviolent.
Right.
I'm not going to take that approach. That wasn't a thing back then. It was just like whatever your parents did, whatever your grandparents did, that's what you're doing.
I think what slowed that down was the automatic weapons. Probably they said, this
Yeah.
isn't that serious.
Yeah.
You spray a field down to 20 people in seconds.
Yeah, but like you had that beef with that guy who kept shooting at you.
Can you imagine being the first guy with a real handgun?
Yeah. But at least that guy had like a pistol.
Right.
That dude wasn't hitting you with an AR.
Right. But he had a pistol, but he was facing a guy that's throwing a shock put at him or something.
Yeah. But I always feel like whenever I watch these old movies, because it's like violence back then, it felt so, on the one hand, it's so brutal in terms of just like, little kids and shit are getting hit with axes.
Yeah.
Like medieval times, and it was just like a real violent fighting culture. But at the same time, it's like they were fighting so much that it almost wasn't even that serious.
And they were doing it in dress shirts.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah, full on armor and shit.
Yeah.
But it's like nowadays we know concussion protocol, so it's like, oh, this dude got hit, you can't go to sleep, you got to go see a doctor.
Yeah.
Back then, I mean, you were just getting concussed.
Yeah. People shooting. Remember the regulators would come out with their horses and they go around the house, start burning it down.
Yeah.
Jessup, you got to go to war. You ain't going to take my boy.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, you just go from doing nothing. You're just sleeping in your pajamas.
And people really wanted to fight back then. It's a different culture.
Yeah.
Yeah, my grandfather, he fought in both wars. He lied. He didn't want his older brother to go to the war. So he was 14 when he fought in World War I.
Wow.
Yeah.
What did he do?
My great-grandfather.
Yeah.
I don't know what he did actually. He was like,
Wait, he was fighting for Italy, or this was America?
I wish I would have talked to him more. To be honest with you, I really don't know. To be honest,
Right.
I thought he fought in World War One in America. Like, is this where was World War One?
It was in Europe.
Okay,
But I mean, like, it was all of Europe, so maybe he was fighting for Italy.
well, he's Italian.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, he lied about his age, 14. He gave me his knife, and when you even see the knives that they used back then, it's like some handmade shit. It was like
it's like a shank.
Yeah, and it had the survivor stuff on the inside to stitch yourself.
Yeah.
That was a real thing. The Rambo knife was a real thing back then.
Oh man.
He told me, he goes, I stitched myself with that needle. I threw it out. I'm like, oh God.
Yeah.
Oh, no, you know.
It's like I watched this movie last night about these like this like 1700s. It's like, pirate kind of fighting, and it's just like somebody is like this like little kids, they're just on a boat, they're working a boat, they got to go fight this other boat, so now you got this 12-year-old kid running around with a knife,
wow,
stabbing somebody. And it's like whenever you see that kind of situation, you think about what it's like to be actually that kid, and all of a sudden you got to just go from being a sailor to being a soldier on the spot. And there's no like, I don't know, should we do this? Should we not do this? It's like, no, this guy's coming at with a sword, and all of a sudden these like killer instincts kick in.
And when you're 12, especially, like people wouldn't want to hit you when you're 12. Like, like you ever talk to those people that fought? I used to work with this guy. He fought in Vietnam. He actually got screwed over. They dropped that Ancient Orange on him when he was in the field or whatever.
Yeah.
But anyways, he said the kids there would play real sad, and he'd try to help them. Then they'd stab you.
Wow.
He's like, they like they were all about it. Like he's like, dude, young dude.
Wow.
Like you're saying 12. And he'd be like, come on, let me help you out. And they'd be like behind you and stab you in the back.
Wow. I wonder though, is it like when you think about prime age for doing something like violent and crazy, I feel like it's got to be like 16, right?
Well, the thing is, when you're young like that, you don't think about repercussions.
Exactly.
You might be better off when you're 12.
But I mean, like, yeah, I think right around age 10, it's like you go from being like a little dumb, worthless kid to being like potentially you could do something insane.
Yeah.
But it's like once you get too old, you get to our age, and then it's like suddenly you're second guessing yourself and you're thinking about all this other stuff. But it's like you're trying to pick the perfect age for a child soldier. It's got to be like 12, right?
Think about how those old pirates, when they'd get their hand chopped off and they'd have the hook hand and they'd lose their foot. It's like, bro, give it up. You ain't good.
Yeah, there's a warning. Yeah, I mean, like they're showing you right now. You would still have two hands if you could fight.
Right, if you knew what you were doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I never realized that in the inland you're fighting with the town next door. I thought that didn't really start happening until like the 60s.
Well, I think just people are naturally tribal. So if you're naturally in a situation where like, there's only enough to go around for you and your small village, you and a couple of the families.
Yeah.
Then the next family comes over. It's like, no, this guy's going to take my goats.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. I didn't even realize it was like that.
Well, just think about the way people act in any situation. I feel like we're so like everything is so modernized now and everybody is so in their head. But there are certain situations where I feel like that kind of tribal behavior still comes out.
Yeah.
Whenever you're in a situation where it's like, we're stuck at this airport for the next 10 hours.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, hey, guys, just so you know, there's only 8 chicken sandwiches left. And then see what happens to people.
You're right.
Suddenly it becomes tribal, where it's like one guy's like, no, my family is getting those chicken sandwiches.
Yep.
My family, and we're going to team up with this other guy's family. Nobody else is getting shit.
I see it right away when they go, guys, in group 8, we're going to have to check your luggage. And people don't want to do that.
Oh, yeah.
They'll be ready to fight you over that.
Yeah.
I don't got time to check my luggage. It's like, bro, what?
I've been in like a coffee shop where there's like, they give you a key to go to the bathroom. It's
Yeah.
a big obnoxious key. Everybody's waiting in line. This guy takes the keys. Like he goes back to his family. Like, and you guys have to use the bathroom. You guys can get this key. Everybody's like, no, we're waiting for them. It's like, no, what you guys will keep waiting.
Yeah.
I have the key now.
Even when there's lines, especially in this neighborhood, dude, people will cut the line, act like they don't know what you're saying.
Yeah,
You'll
yeah.
be like, yo, you cut me. No.
No.
Yeah, you cut me.
No, this is my cousin. My cousin was here.
You know who got me good? An old lady got me good one time at not over here. I was living in the Bronx, and they had a number thing because it was like the only grocery store around, you know. So the deli was crazy long.
Right.
So they had the numbers, and dude, you're waiting. No matter what, you're waiting. Yeah. You're there a good 35, 40 minutes.
Jesus.
Just to get some ham and stuff. So anyways, this lady got me good, dude. I was waiting and waiting and waiting. She took one of the old tickets and walked over with it and played like she didn't know. They just let her go. They were like, oh, no, we called your number here. What did you want? I'm like, you fucking bitch.
Yeah, see, like back in the day, that would have been, we're fighting for 100 years now.
Yeah.
It's I'm getting you, I'm getting your grandkids.
I'm following you home.
This is straight up. I think that's how prison gangs form. Is that once you get people into this situation where suddenly there's limited resources and there's not really a freedom of movement, then all of a sudden everybody starts to guard their own thing.
Yeah.
And you got to get all strategic with it.
It sucks in the prison games because, like, I had a couple of cousins did some long stretches.
Yeah.
And they're very down-to-earth people, but you have to become racist when you're in prison. There's no, like, if you want to walk alone, dude, your own race will get you. Like, you can't, you have to be like, oh, I hate you now, you know? I don't know if I even got that in me.
Nothing personal.
Yeah.
I think you do. I think nobody thinks that until they get to prison. Then it's like, what am I? Yeah.
I thought you meant because you heard me talk in conversations.
No, you've already said you're a follower.
Yeah, I am. I'm a natural follower. That's right.
So it's like you get in a situation like that. It's like you're not going to be like, no, I'm going to take the stand.
Yeah.
I'm going to be Martin Luther King in this situation. It's like, no, you're in it.
Yeah, and that is the truth, man. I respect somebody if there's a leader. I'd probably become a Muslim or something if I went in there. One of them triple Muslims.
Yeah. But like back then, I mean, like we're talking about history. It's like it wasn't until like a couple hundred, like maybe like 100 years ago, where people actually started questioning things.
Yeah.
Where it's like, no, actually, I'm not going to do what my parents did.
Yeah, moving a town over.
Yeah. Well, it's just I'm not going to fight a guy just because I'm supposed to fight the guy.
Yeah.
But it's like throughout human history, that's all this beef was.
When do you think that started? Do you think that's what started those after-school programs? Listen, you don't need to fight this guy.
Well, I think at a certain point, you just realize that, like, I think when you're growing up, you think your parents are smarter than you. And then you hit a certain age and you realize, now maybe they're not.
Yeah.
There's certain things where it's like, no, they're good people, but there's certain things that I could probably do different than my parents.
Oh, yeah. Without a doubt. That is always an interesting thing when you realize that.
Yeah.
It's like, maybe I could floss.
Right.
My dad wasn't right. That's not for girls.
Yeah. But you said your dad was like, he was on some wild shit like when you were young, but then eventually he kind of came around.
Yeah, like that's the thing. Back in the day, back in the 60s, I mean, that was also a different type of turf. Like even in New York, you could talk to people. Like there was certain towns the Italians ran. Remember the movie Warriors?
Yeah.
It was really like that back in the day. Remember they'd be like, "Get off my turf," you know?
Yeah.
They got their little leather vest, Warriors.
Yeah.
But so everywhere was kind of like that back then. Like if you look up Youngstown, where I'm from, Google Youngstown 1960s.
That was like gangsters and shit.
Yeah, you'll see the news anchors. It was everything. They had like, certain areas you couldn't go.
Right.
But yeah, they would fight, man. Like you wouldn't want to be racist back then. But I guess it was like prison rules. It was.
Yeah, well, it's either them or you.
Right.
Yeah.
Like they used to do, my father was telling me they had like blanket parties. And my dad's not, he's not racist. I mean, I can't really talk to him on speakerphone in public, but
hey, it was a different time.
He's not like a meaning, like he'll say something, you'll be like, Dad, you don't realize something's wrong about that.
Ignorant than racist, yeah.
But his heart is in a great place. Like,
yeah.
He'll pull over. I had to tell him, quit doing this. He knows how to fix cars. And, dude, he'll pull over and help anybody out. Like, I'm like, dude, you're going to get robbed. Like, you can't be doing that, bro. And, yeah, he's that guy. He'll spend hours with it. He doesn't care what color you are. He's a God-loving person,
Right.
We're all individuals. But the situation he was put in
yeah.
was, people were racist back then. Like, you'd get jumped just for being white. Like he told me, even when he was like 7 years old or 8 years old, he got his first job after school. He was a janitor. Yeah, dude, he was a
Jesus
janitor
Christ.
at like 8 years old, and he had to go across town to like one of the black neighborhoods, and he'd have to ride his mini bike. And he said they would chase him. He said and he had real long hair, and his hair would be blowing in the wind. He'd be gunning his mini bike as fast as it could go.
Yeah.
And he said black people would be chasing him. You'd feel their fingers like touching the
Wow.
back of his
It's
neck.
like a horror movie.
Yeah, he'd be leaning forward because they'd steal his bikes and stuff.
Oh, wow.
And then when he went to high school, he said they had this thing where they do blanket parties. Like, he'd be like there after school, like mopping up the room, and then they'd shut off the lights. And I guess they'd put a blanket over your head, and they'd hit you in the head with pipes and stuff, like if you were
Jesus
white.
Christ.
So like he got jumped one time, and jumped him bad. He woke up in an ambulance. He was knocked out. And
Wow.
I guess he knew the kids that jumped him, but so he went. He got out of the hospital, and his dad was a sheriff. Like my grandfather was the sheriff of town. He was the head cop.
Yeah.
And the cop, he went to the school to talk to the principal. And my grandfather, I don't know all the details, but he got shot in his legs. Like, I think he jumped in front of a bullet for a mafia guy. So that kind of lets you know, like, what type of cop he was.
Yeah.
But
He was down.
he'd always tell me, I took 4 bullets in my leg for that guy. you know.
Wow.
But he, I think he was kind of a probably crooked cop back then. And well, when you're messing with your kids too, then it's
Right.
a different story.
Yeah.
So he went up to the school, went right up to the principal, said, "Hey, there's a problem with security in your school. My son was in the hospital because he got jumped. He's the janitor at this school, and he got jumped, and we got to do something about it."
Wow.
And the principal's like, "Oh yeah, no, we can make a report." He goes, "Oh no." He goes, "We're going to handle this right now."
Wow.
And he goes, "I'm not the type of cop you think I am."
Yeah.
And he goes, "So we know who did it. And if you don't let my son fight each one of them one-on-one, your life's going to get very hard."
Wow.
And the principal had no choice.
Yeah.
So they put my dad in the shop class, shut off the lights, and I guess they'd throw the kids in there. They were all terrified of my father, too, I think, because he was kind of nuts. He boxed and, like... I've seen
Wait,
my dad.
how old was your dad? He was in high school?
He was in high school, probably 16. But, dude, he used to hang with all those boxers, and him and his brothers always fought for fun. Like, my dad was fast. People say he was the Mayweather of the streets. I seen him. Dude,
Mayweather's like a defensive boxer, though. He's like a technical wonder.
Yeah, well, no, I think,
Sounds like
no,
he's more like
this was
Mike Tyson
before
or
Money
something.
Mayweather. This
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, this is, what do you call it? The Mayweather before him, the dad.
Okay,
You ever see the dad?
Yeah.
Dude, the dad was fast,
Yeah,
bro.
yeah.
And yeah, so my father was lightning fast like that.
But he was like kind of a small dude too, right? He's like your size.
I think he was smaller than me. He was skinny, but he broke all these records back then, so he was strong. He broke a push-up record, one-handed push-ups. He was able to do like 300 on one hand.
Right, yeah.
He broke every record in the school.
Yeah.
They said he was like, he should have been on Ritalin or whatever, but he just worked out all the time.
Wow.
He lifted weights all the time since he was a kid. Never did drugs, boxed, lift weights, did push-ups and sit-ups.
Wow.
Broke every record in the school like that. He was that type of guy.
Yeah.
I seen pictures of him. Dude had biceps when he was 16. Like,
Jesus.
and everybody knew him. People would tell me years later, they'd be like, "Oh, your dad, man, he was a bad dude, man."
Wow.
Yep. And he fought dirty too, man. One time I mouthed off with him when I was boxing. I thought I was good. I was getting ready to turn pro. I'm thinking, man, my dad's an old man. I'll take him. I said, "You want to put the gloves on?" He beat the shit out of me. I'm like,
wow.
"Wait, that ain't legal. That's not a
Jeez.
boxing move." I mean, in a fatherly way. He just let me know, like, "Yo, I could whip your ass."
Wow.
But so they were throwing these kids in the shop room, and my dad one at a time was just messing them up, kicking them, biting them. He told me, going crazy.
Jeez.
Whatever he could do, he's like, "Yo, I just went after him like an animal. I just went nuts." And it was that type of time where his father told him, "Son, if you lose this fight, I'm really gonna mess you up."
Wow.
And his dad used to beat him. This is back when people get beat, man. He told me he'd get so scared of his father one time he hid in the back of a TV. Like, dude, I'm talking like these guys used to really punch you in the mouth and knock you out.
big TV, or he was just a little dude?
No, it was like I think he was like 6, you know. But imagine being that scared of your father.
Wow.
You're hiding in the back of the TV.
Yeah, that's the thing though too. When talking about like violence back then, because you hear these stories and you hear that a guy did 300 push-ups and he was lifting weights, but it's like back then nobody really knew about like nutrition.
Yeah,
And there's no like video of any of this stuff. So I'm always thinking like, because what you're describing about him getting beat with pipes, to me that sounds like you would die.
right.
Yeah. Or it's like if that happened now, that would be like a life-defining event for you.
Yeah,
Where you were concussed and that you were like you spend the rest of your life disabled or something. But it's like no, back then dudes just got beat with pipes.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean like you get hit with the baseball bat and you would end up in the hospital, and then a month later you're just back at work. But it's like now that would be, you'd be done.
And you know what he used to do too? Since he was 7 years old, he busted out concrete and his older brother was like a father figure, because my dad's dad kind of was out of the house when he was 7.
Yeah.
So he started working, dude. He would he would have him bust out driveways with a sledgehammer since he was 7.
Jesus
So when
Christ.
you're that type of a guy, like
Yeah.
wheelbarrowing concrete your whole life,
Yeah.
it's somebody you don't want to fuck with. It's a different
Yeah,
level.
yeah.
It's tough.
Well,
You know?
you don't realize what this kid's been through.
And that he went to bed hungry every night. Like they didn't have nutrition. He'd be
Wow.
lucky to have a bologna sandwich back then.
Intermittent fasting.
He told me that he would go to bed dreaming about, like, he would bust out concrete all day just to eat. He wouldn't even get paid. They'd be like, "Yeah, I'm gonna buy you Arby's 5 for $5."
Jesus
Spend
Christ.
$5 on them.
Yeah.
And he'd be waking up 4:30 in the morning, 5 o'clock, and busting out concrete, then going to school
Wow.
so they could lay the concrete down.
Just imagine he's spending the entire day just swinging a hammer, hitting concrete, just thinking about fighting.
Yeah, and he knew
in
it.
your head, because there was no like, you're not listening to podcasts, you're not listening to music, there's no TikTok. It's like, no, I'm playing this shit over again in my head.
Well, he had 7 older brothers, and they would always fight, because my whole family, dude, that's the Leonelli family is all about fighting. Like my grandfather
Yeah.
was the champion boxer in the Navy, and my uncles were all Golden Glove champs. Like that's what they did.
Right.
And they would always, like, anytime, dude. I remember I had my ears pierced. My grandfather's like, "Let me show you something. You get in a fight, hit me in the chin." You know, he'd be showing you, keep your chin down. You know,
Wow.
it was like they do the prayer, the family prayer, and it would be all about fighting. Like everything was about fighting. You
Wow.
know?
What was the
Tell
prayer?
the story. You wrap the fence. He goes, "Remember?" He goes, "Joey was 10 years older than your dad, and your dad takes the fence and wraps it around his neck. His face is turning blue."
Yeah.
Dude, they're like in 8th grade, you know.
Wow.
And that's what they do. It's like, okay, well, thank you, God, for that one.
All right. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, wild, dude. Oh, that's all. They didn't, that's what they did back then in Youngstown, man. People just fought.
See, just think too that this was pre-UFC days.
Yeah.
There was nothing to gain from any of this fighting. I mean, your dad wasn't like, he was fighting pro, or was he?
No, he was a street fighter.
He wasn't. The goal wasn't to like, I'm gonna make a bunch of money fighting. This is just like, this is just what I do.
It was a way of life there.
Yeah.
It was, you know what it is? It's ego and all that. Like people said when my father would walk into a bar, they knew he had weapons on him. They'd be like, "Come on, give me the gun, give me the knife."
Wow.
He was one of those guys.
Yeah.
He'd be like, "I know you got another one," But the thing is, you're getting jumped and fighting all these people.
Yeah. Yeah.
That karma catches up to you, man. Like, but back then, I think it was just that's what you did.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. You grew up in California. Did your father like street fight people? Was that
Yeah.
normal? See, Youngstown was a way different type.
I think
of
that
life.
it's a very specific cultural thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of Italians. But, I used to want to be like my dad. And I'd be like, telling fights. I'd make it sound worse because he'd always have these cool fight stories.
Right.
And like one time he told me this Puerto Rican kid put out a butter knife on him. And he's like, "What are you going to do? Butter some bread?" And the kid like stabbed him in the stomach.
Wow.
And then he said they became real good friends after. But he goes, yeah, I was like, "Man, that's a crazy story." He's like, "Yeah, we fought it out after." But this was also the type of times when they would say, and a lot of people actually had this. It wasn't just Youngstown, because
Yeah.
you could hear stories like this. Back in those days, if you fought somebody, your parents take you to the house and make you fight them again. Like in the hood,
Yeah.
that's what they did.
Yeah.
And
It's sanctioned.
yeah, like I remember I had I had a black eye, and actually it was, man, this was where I messed up at. I don't even know why I did this, but I was mean to a girl, and my mother,
How old were you?
I was young, man, like I don't know, third grade or something.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like whatever reason, I deserved it, but anyways, I don't know what happened with that. I was like mean to her, and I tried lying about what happened. There was an altercation, and that same day, my friend showed me a knife. I had this Puerto Rican friend. He showed me his mother's knife. He's like, "Yo, look at this," and he just showed it to me in the bathroom, and that was it. I was like, "Oh, that's cool." And then I went home, and I was like, "Oh, I got this." I think the girl's older brother ended up scratching me or something. I don't know. So like, what happened at school? And I was like, I said, Anthony pulled a knife out on me, and I was trying to be like my dad.
Yeah.
And I was all like, yeah, and I took it off him and I threw him down. I'm making up all these lies. And I didn't know my father in such a small town. He goes, "Oh, you talking about Vico's boy or whatever?" Like somebody's name, Hart's kid or something. Like I forgot who it was. And then I go, "Yeah." And then he goes, "Oh, okay, yeah, he lives over on Illinois Street." He goes, "Good, hop in the truck, man." He's like, "You're going to get him back for that one."
Wow.
And my father was like, "You're going to fight him." And he'd have me boxing my cousin. I never had the heart, but so we go up to the house, and he's like, as soon as he opens up the door, man, punch him in the face. And, he opens up the door. He's like, "Hey, Dom." Dude, I just, back, everything I got. And he beat the shit out of me all over the front yard, man. He beat my ass.
Wow.
And then we stayed friends.
Yeah.
I actually seen him when I went back home. He did like,
so your dad didn't jump in for you or anything? He just let it play out?
Yeah, he let it play out. I think my father,
it was a sense of honor.
Yeah, but I'll be honest. I think back then, I mean, now I know it doesn't matter. I think, I let him down. Like, you ever let your father down? Like, I was just like, he knew I wasn't I didn't have that killer instinct he had.
Right.
So he'd always kind of be like, you're more like your uncles on your mom's side, and he was right. I got more of a heart. Like, dude, you ever go to punch somebody in the face? They do this. I don't want to hurt nobody.
Well, you got to think about what it was like for that kid who opens his door, sees you, gets punched in the face, and immediately switches into fight mode.
Yeah.
Where it's like, no, it's on now.
And he beat the shit out of me.
I mean, I feel like most regular people, if you punch them in the face in that situation, first question is like, "Wait, what are you doing?"
Right.
Yeah. Wait.
Yeah. Hey, man, relax.
This must be a mistake. This isn't. Yeah. Wait. I didn't do. Yeah. I don't know what this is about. Let's talk.
Yeah.
But no, there's a certain kind of guy who's like, "Oh, okay, that's what we're doing."
You're right. There's two different types. There's that killer instinct, and he definitely had it.
Yeah.
Bro, he went to prison for murder.
Wow.
And he got out. He did 10 years for manslaughter.
Jeez.
Yep. I said, "What happened?" He goes, "Man, sometimes you lose your temper."
Yeah.
The
thing is, though, I mean, like, it's better that we're not back in those times of settling things so barbaric, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's like there's a certain aspect of it that is, I think, like human nature of just like aggression. Where like you get a bunch of dudes together in a room, there is going to be some aggression.
Oh,
it's just a matter of how they work it out.
Well, now
hopefully
it's different.
Hopefully they don't work it out by stabbing each other. But it's also like if you just instead of fighting this guy, I'm going to do some weird passive aggressive shit.
Yeah, dude.
And that's not necessarily better.
It still happens nowadays. You put 10 guys in a room with 3 girls. Within 15 minutes, everybody's shirt's coming off. People are doing push-ups.
Yep.
Right? It's a different type of thing. Who's got abs? Who didn't who ate the least amount of food in their life?
Yeah.
This will impress this girl.
I feel like, well, that's what we got to like find a better way to settle things. You know what I mean? Maybe just like wrestling.
I mean,
some way where it's like, oh, no one's actually going to get killed. And there's not going to be permanent damage, but it's like there is a certain, because I've never actually been in like a real fight, but you did martial arts and stuff, so it's like I know the feeling of like, even with boxing, where it's like once you're done boxing, you're so tired, and whatever it was you were mad at before, even if you're still kind of mad about it, you're too tired to be mad.
I would say
like you got it out.
Working out, because if you do wrestling or boxing, it's somebody's gonna exchange too hard of a blow, and one, you're getting hurt, bro. Like people, we only have one brain. The older I'm getting, I'm
Yeah.
like, dude, I try not to hit
Well, that's
my
why
head.
wrestling as opposed to getting,
Dude, you ever wrestle?
Yeah.
Bro, I've been slammed wrestling.
Yeah,
It's
that's
no
true.
joke, bro. You could get hurt.
Yeah. But
I've been slammed on my head.
It feels like the most natural way to settle a conflict as opposed to like,
I don't
pulling out
know.
weapons and shit.
Oh yeah, I mean weapons is worse, but I think if you could
Compared to
do
boxing,
something
though?
like running or
But
something,
I mean, like, if you got to take it out on another guy, you're trying to
working out together, let's see who can work out harder.
No, that's not gonna. Two guys who don't like each other aren't gonna start doing bench presses.
It would be good if they did.
But I mean, like, to actually settle a conflict.
Yeah,
I
because
think-
arm wrestling isn't enough.
Nah, I mean, it has to be. And I feel like, wrestling a guy.
I've seen wrestling go so south that somebody's gonna lose and then go get some weapons. They're not gonna.
Well, that's why I think we gotta teach people to, you gotta teach kids to take out their aggression in a certain way.
Yeah,
But I think the
different way.
worst thing you can do is just act like you're not aggressive, and act like that it's not gonna come up.
Well,
'Cause at some point, you're gonna have a group of dudes in a room.
yeah, it's so easy to make. See, I was lucky. I bartended for a short period, and I learned how to deal with people. And even though I might make the mistake now and again,
Yeah.
you gotta. They're so easy to avoid a conflict. Really,
Right.
it's like if one person's aggressive, hey, man, it's all good. I'm sorry, man. I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
you don't need to be like, oh, really, you did this.
Yeah.
That goes back to the Bible, man. That's what I'm saying. Read your Bible.
Wow, they were fighting back then, though. It's not like shit was all
that's
good.
'cause nobody
they were
was
fighting
reading
more
it.
back then. Yeah. That's the thing, is we are at the least as violent as the world seems, and as much as there's like shootings and shit every day, it's like we are at the least violent point in history, basically.
Yeah.
So even back, you compare it to like, people who are like your father's age, our father's age, who are talking about how back in the day we settled things like men. And it's
Yeah.
like, no, things were way more violent back then.
Well, you ever hear hood dudes talk? They'll be like, man, I was around before cameras. That's like a big thing.
Yeah.
Because the more technology we get is why. See, back then there was no consequences.
Right.
You go kill a whole village. Nobody's going to know what you did.
But it's also like people weren't getting embarrassed in the same way back then. Because now it's
I don't
like
know.
you get caught slipping now. You're just having a bad day. All of a sudden, someone films you and you're viral for the rest of your life. Whereas back then, it's like, oh, somebody spits on you or something. Maybe two guys saw it. And so you got to fight this guy. But it's not like, oh, the entire world is seeing this. And now I got to earn my pride back or something.
Yeah, but dude, back then, they'd be like, are you yellow? Remember?
Yeah.
I don't even know what that meant.
It's a duel.
Yeah, and they would do the six. Remember that you walk steps over nothing.
Right.
That's my horse. You smacked the wrong horse on the ass or something. Yo.
Yeah.
What are you, yellow?
I don't think that was like that common of a thing, though. I think even back then, dudes were just like putting it up and fighting.
Yeah, you don't think they were doing the six shooter?
I think they were for like serious stuff.
Yeah.
If it was like, real, like you're fighting over a gold mine or something.
Oh,
But
yeah,
I
there
think
was
dudes
that
were
too.
like, that was dudes wrestling and just fighting. The thing is, back then, people have always fought and people still fight now. But now it's just, there's actually the guns come out way faster.
Yeah.
Whereas back then, I feel like people used to get into fist fights more, and they would settle things that way. But now it's like, if you get into a fist fight with a dude and you lose, it's not settled.
Right.
It's settled until next time you see him, and then you come at him with a gun.
Bro, how about I was in Alaska, and did you know this about Alaska? There was 0 laws in Alaska. Murder
Yeah.
was legal, everything.
Yeah.
How crazy is that,
It's
bro?
like internet. It's like being in the ocean.
Right.
So, yeah.
I can't believe that. Just because they were like, oh, this place is far away. People would go there to get rich. You could go there, rob people. There was whorehouses. The big gold rush was in Alaska.
Yeah.
So people would be coming out with all this gold and
Well,
pap.
it's like, how are you going to enforce the laws? I'm in the middle of a big ass field of snow. It's like, what, are you going to come arrest me?
I guess so. Dude.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
It's the
crazy.
same reason why there's no laws in the ocean. It's like, who's going to enforce this? Are you going to call the cops?
Right.
Yeah, we're in the ocean.
Yeah, I never really thought about that.
Yeah, it's every man for himself.
If you're just out on the ocean, I guess, yeah, you kill somebody, you just ocean back home. Just
Yeah. Well, you hope that his buddies don't know where you are in the ocean and catch you. But
And how would they ever know? Dude, you look how big the ocean is.
yeah. That's why I don't go to the ocean.
Yeah, I know, dude. I get terrified every time on the ocean. What I try not to think about is how deep it is. And I swear my phone knows when I'm going on the ocean because he'll start talking. Here's a guy from the Titanic telling a story. It's like, bro, I don't want to hear this shit.
Yeah.
You know, it's always, there was never enough lifeboats.
Yep. But just think, like, how long you got to be ready for that shit to switch in your head, where it's like, hey, we're on an island now. It's like all the laws that you remember from back home, that's out.
Right.
Now it's every man for himself. And it's like some people are going to get in that situation and they're not going to be able to adjust fast enough.
Yeah.
And then some guys have been waiting for that day their entire life.
Well, yeah, when you go to like Jamaica and DR and Haiti, those especially, you can't even go. Like, you're an adult, right?
Yeah.
You think, oh, I'll go to the store.
Yeah.
The person at your hotel is going to say, no, I'm not allowed to let you leave. You're going to end up missing. Like Haiti especially. And they'll be like, we'll get a soldier to escort you if you need something from the store. Like, how crazy is that there's people living like that?
Yeah. Well, I think the locals, they don't gotta deal with it as much.
Yeah,
they see you're a tourist.
They see my white ass walking around. I mean, it's almost like that in the Bronx too, though. You know, you got to be careful. Learn a few Spanish words.
Yeah.
You got to try to fit in somehow.
Do you think if there was a situation where there was like desert island where you're stuck with like 100 guys, how do you think you would rise to become the alpha of the group, or would you have to be like the guy that gets imposed on? I mean, how quickly do you think survival instincts would kick in for you?
I mean, they would kick in. I know.
Like there's 70 coconuts and there's 100 people.
When it comes down to it, I do have that killer instinct.
Yeah.
When it comes down to it, but I don't know what I would do exactly. But I know I'm good at manipulating people.
Yeah. Well, you got a network.
Yeah.
You got to find who's got more coconuts.
I could talk to a few people when they turn around, clack, right in the back of the head.
Yeah, well, you got to wait. You got to know who to hit.
Yeah.
And who to do a favor for.
You got to go for the biggest guy. Or you got to just trick them all. It depends on how dumb they are.
Well, I think like it's interesting to think about what happened in that situation, because groups are going to form.
Yeah.
When you have 100 people, it's like it can't be a 100-person group. You can only be really in a group with like maybe 8 people.
Bro, groups even change. People change. I used to have this problem, and I'm so glad I caught it like early on. I used to be this guy that if I had one friend and I'm hanging with them, and then another friend comes along, all of a sudden I'm mean to this guy to make this guy laugh or something. You know, people
territory.
are like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember I did it to my cousin Leo one time. I felt so bad, dude. I'm like, nah, you can't play this game. Even this other kid's like, man, let him play. He went and sat in the van.
Wow.
You know, it's like, people do get weird like that.
Well, just think about that, but now it's like life and death.
Right.
Whereas now you're fighting for a life raft.
Yeah. I mean, dude, I'm sorry. I'm not dying. Like, I'm working it out. I'm getting on that boat.
Well, it's funny to think that some people, because you think that now, but it's like, I don't know. Wait till you get in a situation, then you find out how you react.
Yeah, would you just give up?
Yeah. Well, because there's some people who are just going to be like, who are going to be in denial of the situation.
When you see how some people just tread water, they'll be like, yeah, he treaded water for 16 hours.
Yeah.
I don't know how people do that.
Right.
When you're in survival mode, though, it's a different story.
Yeah.
I've been in survival mode a few times, man. I had somebody shooting at me. Everybody would make fun of how bad of a driver I was, right? My 2 friends.
Yeah.
They'd always be like laughing at me, my one buddy, because his father was real strict. Like, my father was a little bit more lax, but, so his father would be like, what are you doing, you dumbass? Get in the center of the road. Change lanes here. And, I was kind of chill because there's no consequences.
Right.
It's like, dude, the road's empty. So I'd just be cruising, chilling. And my buddy would always be like, dude, what the hell's the matter with you? You hit the curb, you did this. He's like, dude, you're the worst driver I know.
Yeah.
So anyways, one time we were getting shot at in the wintertime, and I had this Camaro. And, dude, rear wheel drive, there's snow everywhere. We're all over the road. This dude's shooting at us, and I saved both of our lives, man. Survival mode kicked in. I don't even remember what I was doing. And I'm like sliding. Dude, I'm going down the road sideways, and I see this dude busting a gun at me. And I'm turning the wheel, and, dude, we're doing 360s and going over a bridge, and it was a rear-wheel drive Camaro in the snow with like bald tires.
Yeah.
I'm all over the road. Like, we're coming up on a bridge, and somehow I'm just turning the wheel. And
staying calm.
Yeah, staying calm.
Staying calm. I'm in control of the situation.
You know what it is, I think? Yeah, you get that. I don't know what it is, but you get autopilot kicks in,
Right.
and you don't even know what you're doing.
But just think, what if autopilot kicked in the other way?
What do you mean?
Where all of a sudden you find out you're a coward.
Right.
That could happen too.
That could.
There's a lot of guys who are cowards in this situation. All
Yeah.
of a sudden they're just spinning in circles.
Yeah. Or they just put their hands up and get out. Shoot me. Just get it over with.
Yeah, exactly.
I used to be that way
Try
with.
to sell out your friends. It was him.
Yeah. I used to be that way with getting paddled, man. I just always want to get the bad stuff over with.
Yeah.
I'm like, just do it. Let's get it over with.
Yeah.
I remember, dude, I was in school when they paddled. Like, I remember. Yeah, man.
Was it private school?
No, it was public school.
Wow.
It was my first 2 years of school. They paddled.
Jeez.
It was the weirdest thing. You go in the principal's office and put on your pants. I remember it even said the underwear too. And dude, it's so weird.
Wow.
It's just a grown man spanking your ass
Jeez.
with a wooden paddle.
Yeah. It seems weird, first off, for the violence, but also that a grown man gets to do that.
Dude, I was
what
like,
if he likes it.
Dude, I was 6 years old or something, 7 years old.
In your head, you're already like, this is going to change someday.
Yeah. I was just like,
this is on the way out.
I knew even then as a 6-year-old, this ain't right.
Yeah.
Got my nuts and my little dick out.
Yeah, this is the 90s.
And you're bent over, and it's just, you know.
Are you supposed to learn a lesson from that?
You feel I had a little bit of weight on me, too. I feel my ass jiggling.
Yeah, you're something you think you got to go on a diet.
He threw in an extra one.
Yeah.
I thought it was 6. Then they quit that shit real quick.
Yeah.
I think I got paddled for pissing my pants.
Jeez.
I told the lady, I was like, I got to go pee. And she wouldn't let me go. And I ended up peeing my pants, and I lied about it. Maybe that's why I got paddled. I had khakis on. And she goes, Dominic, what's that smell? It was pee, right? And she goes, come up here to the class. I said, no, my pants are supposed to be like this. It's designer, dude. I was trying to lie about it.
Wow.
She had me stand up in front of the class. She goes, all right, turn around, and you could probably see all the pee. And everybody's all laughing. She's like, guys, have you ever seen these pants? Is this how they're supposed to be? They're like, no.
Wow.
And I had to get paddled.
What a dumb lie, though, huh?
Yeah, my grandmother brought these real short shorts into school for me. They were like, so the only shorts she had were like from when I was a real little kid or something. I couldn't even button them.
Oh, man. What if she brought them and they already had piss on them? You're like, see?
I told you.
They never believed the kid.
Yeah.